So imagine universal consciousness, which doesn't exist in time or space. Time and space are experiences of a finite mind. So imagine.
What if everything you've been told about your beginning was only half the truth? What if the story of your birth wasn't the true start of you, but just a chapter in something far older, something that never really started at all? The illusion of beginnings and endings. There's a quiet feeling many people have at different points in life. It can come in childhood or late at night when the world is quiet. It's a strange pull towards something beyond this moment, a sense that this isn't the first time you've seen these eyes in the mirror or walked these paths. That feeling isn't random. It's a crack in the story, a sign that you're starting to remember something your mind can't fully explain. The story of I was born and I will die is the most accepted version of reality. It's the structure that holds together everything from religion to identity to how we plan our days. But underneath that story, something more ancient waits, an awareness not bound by time or form. In many spiritual traditions, this deeper awareness is called the self, the witness, or pure consciousness. It has no birth certificate. It cannot be buried. It simply is. In Advaita Vedanta, one of the oldest schools of Indian philosophy, the core teaching is startlingly simple. You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are that which observes both. According to this view, what was born is only the body. What will die is only the body. But what looks through your eyes, what hears these words, it was never born, and it cannot die. Buddhism echoes this truth from a different angle. In the teachings of the Buddha, the self is not a fixed thing, but a collection of experiences, sensations, thoughts, emotions that constantly arise and fall away. What we call me is more like a flame flickering in the wind than a solid object. Yet even that flame is reflected in something unmoving, awareness. So, if we peel back the layers, our name, our age, our memories, our plans, what remains? Who were you before someone first called your name? Who will you be when the name is no longer spoken? The illusion begins when we mistake the body for the self. From the moment we are born, we are assigned an identity, a history, a timeline. But that identity is stitched together from memory, expectation, and repetition. The true self isn't found in time, but in presence, and presence is not born, it simply awakens. You don't have to believe in reincarnation or past lives to sense this. Even science acknowledges that matter cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. So why would your essence be any different? You are not a fixed point in time. You are a process, a flow, a spark moving through form for a while. The moment you stop believing that you began with your birth, the edges of fear begin to soften. The grip of worry starts to loosen. If you were never truly born, then what is there to fear in dying? This isn't a denial of the human experience. It's the opposite. It's an invitation to live more deeply, because if you are not your story, you don't have to keep repeating it. You don't have to carry the weight of every past mistake or every future fear. You can meet this moment without needing to defend or define it. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu writes, "The being is born of the non-being." What he's pointing to is not nothingness, but the space from which everything arises, the unnameable stillness that gives birth to form, then quietly receives it again. Your true nature is that stillness. It wears a face and walks in shoes and pays bills, but underneath it remains untouched. There's a story from Zen tradition about a monk who asked his teacher, "What was my original face before my parents were born?" It's not meant to be answered in words. It's meant to shake the mind loose from its assumptions. Because the moment you stop chasing the illusion of a fixed self, the real journey begins. So if you feel like something has always been watching, quietly present, never changing even as everything else does, you're not imagining it. You're sensing the part of you that was never born. This is only the beginning, but it isn't the start of you. Consciousness without a beginning. Have you ever had a moment where you stood completely still and the world felt like it paused with you? No motion, no noise, just the quiet awareness that something is watching everything, including your thoughts. That silent presence is not just a feeling, it's the key to remembering what you truly are. Long before language shaped your inner world, before someone called you by your name, something was. Already awake inside you, something that didn't speak but still understood, something that wasn't waiting to be taught, but instead recognized life as if it had seen it all before. The mind tries to measure life like a ruler measures distance, from here to there, from birth to death. But consciousness doesn't follow that line. It expands like a sky, with no clear edges, no start or end. It is always here. It is not a product of the body. It flows through the body, but its origin lies elsewhere, beyond matter, beyond form. Many have tried to point to this truth through metaphor. The Bhagavad Gita says the soul is eternal, unborn, undying. In that tradition, the self isn't part of the world, it's the light that reveals the world. Bodies rise and fall like waves, but the ocean of being remains full. If this feels hard to grasp, that's because it isn't meant to be understood with logic alone. It's something you remember more than learn. It's why we feel so drawn to silence, to stillness, to the unknown. These spaces allow the deeper part of us to rise. In silence, the mask falls away. Modern science has started brushing up against this idea too, though it doesn't always use the same words. Studies of consciousness still cannot explain how awareness emerges from physical matter. It's like trying to explain music by only looking at the piano. There's something more at play, something not bound by physical origin. Some mystics have said that the body is like a glove, and the self is the hand. The glove may change, wear out, or be replaced, but the hand that fills it stays the same. That's why so many spiritual traditions speak of remembering rather than discovering. You're not becoming something new. You're realizing what was already true beneath the noise of identity and memory. This is also why time becomes strange when you truly observe it. In deep meditation, minutes stretch out endlessly, or hours vanish like a breath. Because when you rest in the real you, time loses its grip. That version of you doesn't age, it simply observes. This has practical implications. If you are not your body, not your thoughts, not even your name, then who are you defending when you argue? Who are you trying to impress, or prove, or fix? So much suffering falls away when you stop trying to hold up a version of yourself that was never truly real. That's not to say the world doesn't matter. The world is where the dance happens. But it's not your origin. You were not sent here to become someone. You are here to remember what you already are, and live from that truth. Even death becomes different when viewed from this understanding. It's no longer a wall, it's a doorway. Not an end, but a shift, like stepping out of a dream or shedding a costume after a long play. Something in you knows this. It's why many people, when close to death, become calm, as if the part of them that never feared it finally takes the lead. There's an old Sufi parable of a drop of water afraid to fall from the sky, fearing it would be lost forever. But when it lands in the ocean, it realizes it was the ocean all along. That's what we forget, and that's what we return to. The lie is that you were ever truly separate, that your existence is small and brief. But even now, as you read this, something timeless listens. something no calendar can measure, something beyond every fear and every ending. The truth isn't loud, it's not broadcast across the sky. It whispers, it reminds, it waits patiently for you to sit quietly long enough to hear it. And when you do, everything changes, not because you become someone new, but because you stop pretending to be someone you never were. The mirror that shows no face. There is a space inside you that has never looked in a mirror, never spoken a word, never been touched by time. And yet, it is the only thing that has ever truly seen. Every experience, every relationship, every thought has passed through its field, like shadows dancing across a wall. But the wall remains. This inner space cannot be shaped or broken. It doesn't change when your mood does. It doesn't vanish when you sleep. You may not feel it often, but it is always there, like the sky waiting behind passing clouds. And when you notice it, when your attention gently lands there, something subtle begins to unfold. You begin to feel as if you are not the one living your life, but the one watching life move. Not from a distance, not detached, but in a quiet way that feels more real than anything else. That's because the deeper part of you doesn't participate in the illusion, it witnesses it. What illusion? The illusion that you are only your story, your name, your history, your goals, that you started somewhere and are going somewhere, that life is a straight path instead of a circle of remembering. This illusion isn't evil, it's just incomplete. Ancient teachings across cultures tried to reveal this. In Zen, the mind is called a monkey, always leaping, chattering, pulling us away from the stillness of now. Hindu sages spoke of the Atman, the undying self that plays many roles but is never lost in them. In Gnostic thought, there's a hidden divine spark buried under layers of illusion. These are all attempts to point toward the same mystery, that what you are has no beginning and cannot truly end. To recognize this, you must stop trying to get somewhere. You must stop using the outer world as proof that you exist. Instead, you return inward. You let the noise settle. You allow the mirror to be still again so it can reflect the truth. That mirror shows no face, because what you are has no shape, and yet it allows all shapes to appear. Many people sense this in moments of deep stillness, looking at the stars, walking alone in nature, hearing a newborn's first breath. In those moments, something within becomes quiet and wide. Something steps back and observes without judgment. That is your original nature, not the personality, not the memories, but the observer before them. The spiritual path is not about becoming better. It is about becoming quieter. It is not about adding new ideas. It is about seeing what remains when every idea falls away. When the mirror is empty, then the light comes through. The world often distracts us from this. It tells us to build, chase, prove. But there is a deeper invitation, a soft one, to pause, to look, to listen to the silence behind all things. That silence isn't empty, it's full. It holds all you've ever been and all you'll ever be. You are not a character in a single story. You are the page on which all stories are written. The page doesn't get torn when the plot changes. It remains pure and untouched. This realization doesn't need big words or ceremonies. It needs only your attention, not effort, just willingness. Willingness to stop chasing and start seeing. There is a reason this truth feels familiar. It's not new. It has always been with you, like your own breath. You may forget it, but it never forgets you. So, if you feel lost, confused, or weary, pause. Let the mirror be still again. Feel the awareness behind your eyes, the one that watches everything. That is not just a part of you. That is you. That is the part that was never born, and the part that cannot die. the illusion of time and the eternal now. Time, as you know it, is an illusion. It is a construct, a perception created by the mind to give shape to the boundless flow of existence. This idea may be challenging to grasp at first. We live in a world where clocks tick, calendars turn, and every moment is measured by the hands of time. But in truth, time does not govern the essence of who you are. It cannot control the space that exists beyond the ticking of minutes and the changing of days. When you think of time, you think of past, present, and future. These are concepts that the mind clings to, but in the deeper reality of existence, there is only the present moment. Everything that is real exists in the now. Everything else, what you've done, what you will do, is a story you tell yourself, a narrative that shifts with your perception. The past, in reality, does not exist. It is a collection of memories, emotions, and experiences stored within the mind. When you revisit it, you only relive those moments in your imagination, which means they are not present at all. They exist only as thoughts. Similarly, the future is not something that has happened yet. It is a projection of the mind, a series of possibilities based on the present moment, but it is just that, a possibility. The future is not real until it arrives in the now, and when it does, it's called the present. This idea may seem abstract, but it has deep roots in the teachings of the great spiritual traditions. The Buddha spoke of the concept of impermanence, how all things are in a constant state of change and flux. He taught that clinging to the past or obsessing over the future leads to suffering, because we miss the richness of what is happening right now. When you begin to look at time differently, you start to release the grip it has on your life. You begin to notice that most of the things that cause you stress, worries, regrets, fears, are rooted in an imagined future or an idealized past. The truth is that the only moment you truly have is the one you're experiencing right now. Take a deep breath and feel the aliveness in your body, the warmth of the air, the rhythm of your heartbeat. In this very moment, you are alive, and this moment is all you truly have. The mind, however, insists on separating your experiences into before and after. It believes that the past defines you and that the future will give you what you need. But the eternal truth is this: you were never born, and you will never die. There is no before and after, only the timeless presence that is always here. One of the most profound teachings in many mystical traditions is that of the present moment as the doorway to eternity. It is within this moment that the essence of life and the universe unfolds. It is in the present that you connect with the deeper, boundless aspect of your being, where time and space dissolve and you touch the eternal. Take a moment now to sit quietly and just observe. Let go of the need to rush, to get somewhere. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and feel the flow of life happening within you and around you. You are not waiting for something to happen in the future, nor are you trapped in the past. You are simply here, in the now, and in that moment, everything is whole and complete. You may find that as you begin to experience the world in this way, without the constant pull of time, you become more aware of the simple beauty of existence, the sound of birds singing, the warmth of the sun, the feeling of your feet on the ground. These simple things are the fabric of life, and they are always here if you are present enough to notice them. This is the power of living without the illusion of time. Time becomes irrelevant when you understand that it is simply a way for the mind to measure change. In the deeper reality of existence, change is constant, but it occurs outside the concept of time. You are not a body moving through time. You are awareness experiencing life in the eternal now. In this space, you begin to see that death, too, is an illusion. Just as time doesn't truly exist, neither does the idea of death. The body may age and its form may change, but the essence of who you are, the eternal witness, the awareness behind the eyes, remains untouched. The mind, however, will continue to tell stories about death. It will tell you that death is an end, a finality. But the truth is, there is no end. There is only transformation, the constant flow of life, death, and rebirth within the endless now. Just as the seasons change, the body will change, but the essence of life remains the same, unchanging and eternal. The great mystics, sages, and philosophers throughout history have understood this. They have realized that death is not something to fear, but something to understand. It is not the end of life, but the transformation of the form through which life expresses itself. Just as the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, the human form will shed its limitations and become something beyond our comprehension. The challenge, however, is not to avoid death, but to embrace life fully while we are here, to stop living in the illusion of time and to start living in the presence of the eternal now. Once you begin to understand this, your relationship with time and with death shifts. You no longer see them as separate, but as part of the same cycle. Birth, death, and everything in between are merely expressions of the same truth, that life is always unfolding, always becoming. And so we return to the truth that was mentioned earlier. You were never born, and death isn't real. It is not a statement of nihilism or detachment, but an invitation to live fully, to embrace the richness of the present moment, and to realize that you are not limited by the body, time, or death. You are the eternal witness, the awareness that transcends all things. This understanding changes everything. It frees you from the constant chase for something more. It brings you into the beauty and peace of the now, and in this moment you realize that you were never born to die. You were born to live, to experience, and to awaken to the truth of who you really are. The truth beyond the physical world. The understanding that you were never born and that death isn't real opens up an entirely new perspective on life. It is as though the veil has been lifted, revealing a reality that is vastly different from what the mind typically perceives. Once you see beyond the illusion of time and death, you begin to recognize that there is a deeper truth, one that transcends the physical world. This truth is not confined to the body, nor is it bound by the rules of nature as we understand them. It exists in a realm that is beyond what we can see, touch, or measure. This deeper truth can be found in many of the world's spiritual traditions. The ancient sages, mystics, and philosophers have all pointed to this truth in their teachings. Whether it's the Taoist concept of the Tao, the Hindu understanding of Brahman, or the Buddhist teachings of Nirvana, these traditions all speak of an essence that exists beyond the material world. This essence is the source of all life, and it is eternal, unchanging, and beyond the reach of time. To understand this truth, it is important to let go of the need to view the world through the lens of duality. We tend to see the world as divided into opposites, life and death, good and evil, light and dark. But in reality, these opposites are not separate. They are two sides of the same coin. Life cannot exist without death, just as light cannot exist without darkness. They are interdependent, and both are part of the same divine cycle. When you begin to see beyond duality, you understand that everything is interconnected and that there is no real separation between you and the world around you. This realization can be difficult for the mind to accept because it challenges everything we've been taught about reality. We have been conditioned to believe that we are separate from everything else, that we are individuals, isolated in our own bodies, experiencing the world in isolation. But when you see beyond this illusion, You begin to recognize that you are not separate. You are part of the whole, connected to every living being, every tree, every rock, and every star in the sky. In the ancient teachings of the Upanishads, it is said that the true self, or Atman, is one with Brahman, the ultimate reality that pervades all things. This means that the essence of who you are is not your body, your thoughts, or your emotions. These are temporary, ever-changing aspects of your experience. The true self is beyond all of this. It is the eternal witness, the consciousness that observes and experiences life without being affected by it. This consciousness is the same as the source of all existence. In the Christian tradition, there is a similar teaching. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "The kingdom of God is within you and all around you." This statement speaks to the same truth, that the divine essence is not separate from you, but is within you and all around you. You are not disconnected from the source of life. You are an expression of it, an extension of it. Just as a wave is not separate from the ocean, you are not separate from the universe. You are a part of the vast, interconnected web of life that exists beyond the physical world. When you begin to grasp this truth, you start to see the world differently. You realize that everything in the material world is temporary, fleeting, and subject to change. But the essence of who you are, the consciousness that witnesses all of it, is eternal. It is not bound by time, space, or death. It is beyond the physical realm and cannot be touched by the forces that shape the world. This is the truth that lies beyond birth and death, the truth that is always present, always here, and always real. Once you begin to understand this, you can begin to live in harmony with the flow of life. You no longer need to struggle against the inevitable changes that life brings. You can accept death not as an end, but as a transition, a transformation from one form of existence to another. The body will eventually decay, but the consciousness that animates it will continue. This understanding frees you from the fear of death and allows you to live more fully in the present moment. The teachings of the ancient sages emphasize the importance of living in accordance with the natural flow of life. In Taoism, for example, the concept of Wu Wei, or non-action, is central to the philosophy. Wu Wei is not about doing nothing, but about aligning your actions with the natural flow of the universe. It is about surrendering to the present moment and allowing life to unfold without resistance. When you stop fighting against the current of life, you find that things flow more effortlessly and you are able to experience the fullness of each moment. In a similar way, the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita encourage you to act without attachment to the results of your actions. When you act with a sense of detachment, not clinging to the fruits of your labor, you free yourself from the cycle of birth and death. You no longer live for the future or regret the past. You live for the present, fully immersed in the eternal now. This is the key to transcending the illusion of time and death and stepping into the truth of your eternal nature. As you begin to live in this way, you start to realize that your life is not a random series of events. It is part of a larger divine plan, a journey that has been unfolding since the beginning of time. Every experience, every encounter, every joy and sorrow is part of the greater tapestry of life. You are not separate from this process. You are an integral part of it. This understanding leads to a deep sense of peace. When you no longer see yourself as separate from the world around you, when you recognize that you are part of the eternal flow of life, you stop struggling against the inevitable. You stop resisting change, and you begin to embrace it. Life becomes a beautiful dance, a harmonious flow of energy, and you are free to move with it rather than against it. In this state of awareness, you can experience life in its fullest, most vibrant expression. You begin to see the beauty in all things, even in the things that seem painful or difficult. You realize that all experiences, whether pleasant or unpleasant, are temporary, and they are all part of the divine plan. There is no need to fear them, for they are all opportunities for growth and transformation. In the end, the greatest lie is not that death is real, but that we are separate from the source of life. Once you recognize that you are one with the eternal consciousness, you realize that death is simply a transition, a shift from one state of being to another. You are not bound by time, space, or death. You are the eternal witness, the consciousness that transcends all forms and experiences. The unbroken circle of life. The realization that life and death are part of a continuous, unbroken cycle is a concept that transcends the limitations of the human mind. It goes beyond the simple act of being born and dying. The truth that life is cyclical, like the seasons, the tides, and the patterns of the universe, shifts the way we view our existence. Once we accept that we are not separate from this endless cycle, we begin to understand that our journey is not linear but circular. We are not born into life as a one-time event. We are participants in a cosmic dance that spans beyond the veil of birth and death. This view aligns with the teachings of many ancient traditions, where life is seen as a continuous flow, not something with a definitive starting or ending point. In the Hindu tradition, for example, the concept of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, speaks to this idea. Each life, each experience, and each transformation is part of a greater journey, a journey in which we, as souls, are constantly evolving. The essence of who we are, the soul, is immortal. It is neither born nor can it die. It is a divine spark that transcends time and space. While the physical body goes through the cycle of birth, growth, decay, and death, the soul, the true essence of who you are, remains untouched. It simply continues its journey, changing form as needed, but never ceasing to exist. The body, like any other temporary form, may break down, but the soul is eternal, indestructible, and continually evolving. When we come to accept this, we no longer fear death. We no longer view it as the end, but as another stage in the ongoing process of our soul's growth and expansion. In many ways, this understanding also frees us from the grasp of time. Time, as we know it, is a construct of the mind, a system created to measure and make sense of the physical world. But in the grander scheme of existence, time is irrelevant. The soul exists outside the confines of time, flowing with the rhythm of the universe. It is only when we become fixated on the external world, with its pressures and illusions, that we begin to feel bound by the clock. However, when we step into the truth of our eternal nature, time becomes less important. What matters is the unfolding journey of the soul, which exists outside the ticking of seconds, minutes, and hours. There is a beautiful example of this truth in the parable of the prodigal son from the Bible. In this story, a young man leaves his father's house, only to fall into hardship and eventually return. The father, upon his return, welcomes him with open arms, rejoicing that his son who was lost has now been found. While this may seem like a simple tale of family dynamics, it also speaks to the idea of soul's journey. The son represents the soul that leaves its divine origin, only to find its way back home after a series of trials and lessons. It's not that the son was ever separate from the father. He was always loved, always part of the whole. His departure and return simply reflect the cycles of growth and understanding that each soul must undergo. This same cycle is mirrored in nature. Think about the seasons, for instance. Winter brings cold and death-like stillness, but it is followed by spring, which brings rebirth and renewal. Summer flourishes in full growth, only to fade into autumn when things begin to decompose, preparing the earth for the next cycle. And so it goes. Life, death, rebirth, a continuous circle that never truly ends. It only transforms. As human beings, we are part of this grand pattern, and we too undergo transformations, shedding old versions of ourselves to make way for new ones. We die in many ways, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and in that process, we are reborn. Every ending brings with it the seed of a new beginning. When we begin to embrace the cyclical nature of life and death, we also begin to release our attachment to outcomes. We realize that our lives are not about achieving a specific result or destination. Rather, they are about participating in the journey. Every experience, whether joyful or painful, is a step in the dance of the soul. It is not about rushing through life or trying to avoid death, but about embracing the ebb and flow of existence. In the Taoist tradition, this is known as living in harmony with the Tao, the way of the universe. The Tao is not a destination, but a process, a continuous flow of energy that connects all things. When we align ourselves with this flow, we become one with the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This understanding can also provide us with a deep sense of peace. When we no longer see ourselves as victims of time or death, but as conscious participants in an eternal process, we stop fighting against life. We stop resisting the natural order of things. Instead, we learn to trust the process. We understand that death is not the end, but a transformation, a transition from one form of existence to another. And just as a caterpillar must go through the dark, confining cocoon stage to emerge as a butterfly, we too undergo transformations, shedding old aspects of ourselves to make way for the new. When we approach life from this perspective, we begin to see every challenge and difficulty as an opportunity for growth. Life's struggles are no longer something to fear or avoid, but are viewed as the crucible in which our souls are forged. Just as gold is purified by fire, our spirits are purified through adversity. Each trial, each moment of suffering, is an opportunity to shed an old skin and emerge as a more refined version of ourselves. In this way, life becomes a constant process of shedding and renewal, death and rebirth, each moment leading us closer to the realization of our true, eternal nature. Ultimately, the truth is that there is no real death, only transformation. There is no end to the soul's journey, only a continuous unfolding into greater and greater expressions of love, wisdom, and awareness. This understanding frees us from the fear that holds us back, allowing us to live fully and embrace each moment of our existence. It helps us to realize that we are part of an unbroken circle of life, a circle that is eternal and infinite. We are not born into life as isolated individuals, but as part of a greater cosmic pattern, and when we can see life this way, we can begin to experience its beauty, its depth, and its limitless potential. Beyond the illusion of separation, it is important to break free from one of the most pervasive illusions we face, the illusion of separation. One of the greatest challenges of the human experience is the sense that we are separate from the world, separate from others, and ultimately separate from the divine. This sense of isolation is what drives much of our fear, anxiety, and suffering. But what if the very nature of life itself is interconnected, woven together like an intricate tapestry, and we are not separate, but intimately connected to everything around us? The idea of separation is a mental construct, one that the mind uses to navigate and make sense of the physical world. From a young age, we are taught to identify with our body, our thoughts, and our personal experiences. We begin to define ourselves by our actions, by the roles we play, by the stories we tell about who we are. But when we take a step back and see beyond these limited definitions, we realize that the truth of our being is far greater than what we can perceive with our five senses. This realization is a core aspect of many spiritual teachings. In Buddhism, for example, the concept of interbeing suggests that all things are interconnected and nothing exists independently. We are all part of a vast, interdependent web of life. The individual self, which we cling to so tightly, is just an illusion, a temporary construct that hides the deeper reality of oneness. The same idea appears in the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, which teaches that the ultimate reality, or Brahman, is beyond duality. Everything in the universe is ultimately the same essence, and the sense of separation we feel is a product of ignorance. Once we transcend this ignorance, we come to realize that we are not separate from the universe, but rather one with it. This oneness is not limited to our connection with the natural world, but extends to every living being. The interconnectedness of life means that the pain of one is felt by all, just as the joy of one reverberates through the collective. Think about how the actions of one person, no matter how small, can ripple out and affect others. A simple act of kindness can uplift someone's spirit, just as an act of cruelty can bring suffering to another. This is the law of cause and effect, a universal truth that shows us how deeply intertwined we all are. When we start to awaken to the reality of this interconnectedness, we also begin to understand that death is not a personal event. Just as birth is not truly personal, neither is death. The idea that our death marks the end of our existence is a construct built upon the illusion of separation. In truth, death is simply the shedding of one form, allowing the soul to move on to another expression of life. There is no final, absolute end. The energy that animates our bodies continues to flow, transmuting into other forms, continuing the journey of life. There is a beautiful example of this truth in the changing of the seasons. When autumn comes, the leaves on the trees turn vibrant colors and eventually fall to the ground. At first, it may seem like the trees are dying, losing their leaves, but in reality, the energy from those leaves is being absorbed back into the earth, contributing to the growth of new life in the spring. The leaves may be gone, but their essence lives on. This process mirrors the cycle of life and death. Just as the tree is not truly gone when its leaves fall, we are not truly gone when our physical bodies die. This understanding helps us release the fear of death. When we see death as simply another transformation in the eternal flow of life, we begin to approach it with peace, not fear. We understand that we are not truly the body, and we are not bound by the cycle of birth and death. We are the soul, eternal and infinite, existing beyond time and space. Just as we came into this world with a purpose, so too do we leave when our work is done. But our purpose is not tied to the body, it is tied to the soul's journey, the lessons we learn, and the love we give and receive. The fear of death often arises from the belief that we are separate, isolated, and alone. This fear keeps us trapped in a cycle of anxiety and suffering, preventing us from fully embracing the present moment. But when we release the illusion of separation and recognize our unity with all that is, we come to see death in a new light. It becomes not an end, but a continuation of the journey, a return to the source, a homecoming to the oneness from which we all came. At the same time, this awareness of our interconnectedness brings a deep sense of responsibility. If we are all connected, then every action we take, no matter how small, has an impact on the whole. Our thoughts, words, and deeds create ripples in the fabric of the universe, influencing the world around us. This realization encourages us to live with greater compassion, understanding, and love. It reminds us that we are not isolated beings, but part of a vast living system, and that every choice we make contributes to the collective energy of the world. When we understand that life and death are simply two sides of the same coin, we are free to live more fully. We no longer need to live in fear of the unknown, because we know that death is not an end, but a transformation. We no longer need to cling to life, for we understand that we are eternal, and our journey continues beyond this physical existence. In the end, death becomes a reminder of the preciousness of life. It encourages us to live with purpose, to cherish the present moment, and to love deeply. When we let go of the illusion of separation and embrace the truth of our oneness with the universe, we transcend the fear of death and step into the fullness of life. We realize that we are not born and we do not die. We are eternal beings, part of an unbroken, infinite cycle of existence, and our true nature is the same as the universe itself, timeless, boundless, and always unfolding. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.